Now, Psalms 104 is a bit of a prayer of praise to God. So whoever wrote this one, it doesn't say in here who wrote it, but what was going on in their life was a pretty happy time for them, it sounds like. So let's jump in and read this. Verse 1, Bless the Lord, O my soul, O Lord my God, thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty, who coverest thyself with light as with a garment, who stretchest out the heavens like a curtain, who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters, who maketh the clouds his chariot, who walketh upon the wings of the wind, who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers a flaming fire, who laid the foundation of the earth that it should not be removed forever. Thou coverest it with the deep as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. So they're getting into this amazing imagery of how amazing God is, basically. Let's see. Verse 7, At thy rebuke they fled. At the voice of thy thunder they hasted away. They go up by the mountains, they go down by the valleys, unto the place which thou hast founded for them. So this is covering it with the deep. The great waters stood above the mountains. This could be some allusions to the great flood of Noah that they're talking about in here. And then as the water retreated, they probably had a lot of snow and ice up in the mountains. And then they had the water, of course, in the oceans down below. That's probably what they're talking about. There's a possibility of an old ice age that was finishing up around that time as humankind was on the earth. Let's see. Where did we go? Verse 9, excuse me here. Thou hast set a bound that they may not pass over, that they turn not again to cover the earth. He sendeth up springs into the valleys, which run among the hills. They gave drink to every beast of the field. The wild asses quenched their thirst. By them shall the fowls of the heaven have their habitation, which sing among the branches. He watereth the hills from his chambers. The earth is satisfied with the fruit of thy works. He causeth the grass to grow for the cattle, and herb for the service of man, that he may bring forth fruit out of the earth. So getting into not just the grand, amazing things that God has done with like creations and floods and natural phenomenon, but this is talking about blessing, thanking God for the cycles of nature that we have out there and how they help us improve our lives. We can live and survive because of these cycles of nature that God has put in place basically on this earth. In fact, verse 15, and wine that maketh glad the heart of man, and oil to make his face to shine, and bread which strengtheneth man's heart. So this verse by itself gets into taking the natural elements and man using them for their good. So wine has to be gathered and then fermented and utilized. It doesn't just, fruit isn't naturally wine. Fruit that goes bad can ferment, but not really recommended to eat that stuff. And then bread, of course, you have to take wheat and grind it down and mix it. And oils, you have to press it to get it out of the plants and the trees and things. So this is man. This verse talks about man using the natural things that God has given to us to bless us, our lives even more. Verse 16, the trees of the Lord are full of sap, the cedars of Lebanon which he hath planted, where the birds make their nests. As for the stork, the fir trees are her house. So these are cedars, fir trees. These are types of pine trees, basically, out there. So cedars are kind of related, well, sort of. They don't look like a pine tree, the same thing with the needles and stuff, but they are kind of an evergreen type tree. Which would give us more deserty. Cedars are a little more common for deserty type climates. Fir trees are pretty good as well. They're not bad for deserty climates either. Pine trees are your more higher elevation type trees up in the mountains, the true pine trees. But just how the birds are even supported by nature. God has provided for them as well. Let's see, 18, the high hills are a refuge for the wild goats, and the rocks for the conies. And it says here, those are rock badgers. is what a coney is, or a rock badger, basically. So there's mountain goats, there's animals that live up in the mountains, there's animals that live in the fields and forests, that they are all provided for. In fact, verse 19, he says, He appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knoweth his going down. Thou makest darkness, and it is night, wherein all the beasts of the forest do creep forth. So this is even getting into astronomical things of understanding the sun rises, the sun sets. Animals adjust their behavior based upon what time of day it is, not so much because of a clock, but because of the rotation of the sun, which is technically the rotation of the earth. And the moon for seasons, because we have the different faces of the moon that go through the different seasons through basically a month, that they can use to calculate certain things, times a year that certain things need to be done. Verse 21, the young lions roar after their prey. They seek their meat from God. So God feeds the animals and helps them. Verse 22, the sun ariseth, they gather themselves together and lay down in their dens. Man goeth forth unto his work and to his labor until the evening. Now this is something that historically has been very true. You got up in the mornings when it was bright, you did your work, and then when it got dark, you went indoors. Basically, you used candles to see and do stuff. The candles were limited in their function, and so people would go to bed at night. It wasn't until the invention of the light bulb with electricity that the idea of staying up all night became a bigger deal, because now you could see. People still stayed up, but they just couldn't see and do stuff, so it became more prevalent to avoid those circadian cycles, basically, or get around them because you could artificially see. Let's see, verse 24, O Lord, how manifold are thy works. In wisdom hast thou made them all. The earth is full of thy riches. Now, when you think about this, you think about all the heavens and the earth and the constellations, and you think of the cycles, the patterns of water going up in the atmosphere, moving over, raining, providing sustenance and nutrition, and birds can feed, and there's these cycles of life that help support the abundance of we have on the earth, and how that is the riches of God in a way. I really think, though, the riches of God are his people more than it is the actual stuff that he's put in place, his creations. His ultimate creation was you and I, and that's where his real wealth is, truthfully. But they don't necessarily mention that in this psalm. So verse 25, so is this great and wide sea, wherein all things creeping innumerable, both small and great beasts. So the oceans, the plants in the oceans. Verse 26, there go the ships. There is that Leviathan whom thou hast made to play therein. Now Leviathan gets into an idea of sea monsters, basically, that there's a giant sea monster that lives in the depths of the ocean that can come out and destroy and cripple ships. In some of the pirates legends and movies, we talk about the Kraken. It's kind of that same idea. There's probably just some large octopuses or large whales and then the story is kind of the big fish story. It just kept getting more amazing as more people told it. But they're even kind of saying, even Leviathan is part of God's work, basically. Verse 27, these wait all upon thee, that thou mayest give them their meat in due season. That thou givest them, they gather. Thou openest thine hand, they are filled with good. Thou hidest thy face, they are troubled. Thou takest away their breath, they die, and return to their dust. So this is getting into the idea that God controls all of it. It's like a garden for him. He can tend it, he can watch it. If he lets it go, it all falls apart. He's supporting everything and helping with everything. Verse 30, when thou sendest forth thy spirit, they are created, and thou renewest the face of the earth. The glory of the Lord shall endure forever. The Lord shall rejoice in his works. He looketh on the earth, and it trembleth. He toucheth the hills, and they smoke. I will sing unto the Lord as long as I live. I will sing praise to my God while I have my being. My meditation of him shall be sweet. I will be glad in the Lord. Let the sinners be consumed out of the earth. Let the wicked be no more. Blessed thou the Lord, O my soul. Praise ye the Lord. So had been some amazing times, or some quite a reflection to think about all the grand stuff that's going on in the world that this person is praising God for in this psalm. It's pretty interesting. A good praise, good acknowledgement of how much God really does play a role in our life. So thanks for watching. Let's jump over to the next psalm as we continue on.